Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Financial Doctor Show. I'm so excited to introduce you to today's guest, Mr. Joe Stetter. Joe is an award-winning and international best-selling author, and two of her books that we will be talking about today are both one for Canada and one for US. But this is a title. Congratulations, you are hired. It was easier than you thought. He is a recruiter, has actually his own recruiting company. He's a career coach. And actually, he has an amazing course developed just for you, which is helping you to land your dream job. So, especially in the current COVID era, we definitely want to hear more about this. Joe, and welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Annie, thank you very much for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure. I'm awesome, making the best of this weird situation called COVID.
Perfect, perfect. I love it. So, why don't you share, your story and how did you become this amazing person who actually helped over 11,000 people to find their dream job? So go ahead.
So my story started when I was kind of younger. I did not know what I wanted to do when I grew up. So, my parents being very like, get an education, get an education. I went into finance, worked in finance for nearly 7 years. Was like, I hate finance. You couldn't pay me $1 million to go work in finance again. So I kept searching for what I want, and I switched careers 9 times. I switched jobs 17, 18 times in the process of trying to figure out what I want to do along the way. Somewhere along the line, and basically in approximately 2001, I became a recruiter. In 2006, I opened my own firm. I work with companies like Deloitte and Touche, IBM, Apotex Pharmaceuticals, Aecon Construction. So I've been a generalist in recruiting for 20 years. And then I've kind of gone through a process of kind of figuring out who I am. So I've done a lot of self-development, like, doing Tony Robbins' Walk of Fire, reading a lot of books, as you can see behind me. And kind of when I did, let's say, the Walk of Fire with Tony Robbins, I went, why is nobody teaching this stuff for job finding? Like, this is principles of mindset that you need to have to get a job. And so I realized this is my life's purpose, is to help people kind of get back on their feet, get that dream job. And I've coached, or I've had the honor and the pleasure of helping over 11,000 people find employment. Most of my candidates find employment within 90% of them found employment within 3 months. The fastest I found people a job is 2 days, and that's multiple people. And it's just a joy to kind of help them understand. If you understand the systems, the tools, and the tricks, you can actually get hired really, really quickly. And that's why I also created the online course to kind of make everybody, especially now with COVID, where in North America alone, 60 to 65 million people have lost their job. And so a lot of people are scrambling going, I can't find a job. There's plenty of jobs. You're just looking in the wrong places, or you're not selling yourself correctly.
Totally, totally. So, this is quite a journey that you just described to us. And I really love how you found your purpose and your passion in finding the way to help others and make a difference. And for you, it's actually for them to land their dream job and coach them for obviously not only getting the opportunity, but also negotiate the best, income salary for themselves.
Everything. And you know what? There's a level where I can say, look, I encourage people to be entrepreneurs too, but a lot of times when you're starting out as an entrepreneur, finances are very tight. And sometimes you need to get a good job to be able to pay for an entrepreneur lifestyle. And so there's a combination where, if you look at the statistics, like on the top 10 reasons why somebody leaves a job, salary is actually number 7. The number 1 reason people leave a job is because of the way they're treated, right? Where there's no opportunity for growth, they're not being respected. And so I want to show people that, there's a lot more resources than Indeed. In fact, Indeed is probably the worst resource that you can use to find a job. And if you follow certain techniques, you'll be very successful.
That's absolutely amazing. So you know what? Let's talk about your recruiting firm first, which I believe is called the Celebrate Group. And I already love the title, Celebrate. So let's celebrate because there are groundbreaking results much faster than anyone would have been thinking. So tell us a little bit more in terms of what your specialty is. You mentioned a few companies in terms of
So
that you were
I've been
able
a
to.
generalist in recruiting. So I've recruited in most industries, most of the jobs I do are white collar and higher end blue collar jobs kind of thing. Um, Basically, when I got into recruiting in my first year in recruitment, I generated $760,000 for my employer. My supervisor, who'd been there for 11 years, generated $140,000. For Christmas, my bonus was cheese and crackers. And when I looked at the owner and said, "What the hell is this?" She looked at me and goes, "Well, the cheese is from Pusateri's, which is a very high end kind of grocery store." And I'm like, "Do I look like I'm 65 years old that I need cheese from Pusateri's? Like, at least buy me a CD," because we're going back to, like, early 2000s or whatever. I could put that to use. And then I looked around and was like, "You do realize that, like, I brought in all this. This is new business. It's not business that you've had before. I build those relationships. You know what? If you're going to give me cheese and crackers for generating $760,000 for you, I don't need you." And I basically spent 3 months building kind of how I want to do business, how I want to build those relationships. And then I launched my business, um, and haven't looked back since, basically. And I've worked with companies like Deloitte and Touche, like Apotex Pharmaceuticals, like Aecon Construction, like IBM. So large to small, again, focusing on professional positions, so accounting, engineering, lawyers, IT guys, both software and hardware, graphic design, healthcare, those kind of things, right? A lot of times, if I work, let's say, with construction, it's usually project managers or at least site supervisors and up in terms of there. And um, again, part of what I noticed because I've worked in different industries is the amount of mistakes people make on their resume, the amount of mistakes people make on let's say interviews, where somebody goes to an interview and says, "Oh, you know what? I talked about music for a half hour," and then they're shocked that they didn't get the job, because unless you're applying in the music industry, talking about music for a half hour is not going to get you the job. It just might be a nice conversation, but it's not the purpose of the conversation.
Get it. So, okay, before we go into the tips and tricks, and I really hope that you will be able to share some of your wisdom, with our
Absolutely.
audience. Let me ask you this. So I understand that your company is not just localized, even though you are physically, in the GTA, in the Greater Toronto area, but you're really servicing entire North America. So tell us a little bit more in terms of how you can help people and how the job market has been changing, pre-COVID compared and now COVID, in terms of when people are applying, and why is it so important to, utilize someone like you to actually land that opportunity?
Okay, so I'm going to start with a couple stories, if that's okay, and how I helped kind of two individuals find a job in 2 days. And then I'm going to kind of explain both kind of the job boards, where most people spend way too much time and energy on, and why they don't succeed, and the resumes in terms of the 5 cardinal sins of a resume. So the first example is actually my wife. When we met, we were dating. She works with autistic kids. She had an evaluation and she failed her evaluation by 1%. She got 96% on her evaluation and she needed 97%. And the company told her they're not renewing her contract. So after crying for a couple of days, I looked at her. I'm like, "Honey, you do realize you're dating one of the top career coaches in North America?" And she's like, "Okay." So I rewrote her resume. Sunday afternoon, she sent out 7 resumes. Monday morning, 3 different companies called her, or 3 different schools called her, asked her to come interview Tuesday, and all 3 offered her a job, basically, kind of on the spot. The second one was when I first started doing this. I am also an avid salsa dancer and performer. I've been performing and competing for 15 years. And when I first started dancing, I had a relatively young dance partner who calls me one time and goes, "There's this internship at Bell Canada that's unpaid for graphic designers. And I really, really, really want it." And I was like, "You really, really want it?" She's like, "Yeah, I'll do anything." So I made fun of her a little bit for being so excited. I said, "Okay, I'm going to be like your Mr. Miyagi, you know, Karate Kid style, wax on, wax off. You don't ask any questions. You do exactly what I tell you." I said, first of all, because of the fact that you're applying for a graphic design role, you're not allowed to have a black and white resume, because the word graphic and design are in your job title. So we made her resume green. And then she had for her like digital work a little signature where she had like a little dancing guy kind of like this. We made that her bullet points. So she was a barista at Second Cup, and I showed how her being a barista at Second Cup is actually graphic design because she gets to decorate the lattes and draw an image on it. So we sent the resume over. 2 weeks go by, and she calls me. She's like, "They didn't even call me. You suck." An hour later, they called her and said, "We are so sorry we didn't call you sooner. We received 7,400 applications for 20 unpaid internships. Your resume was one of our favorites. So because we received so many applicants, we're going to do a 3-interview process. Your first interview is going to be in 2 days." So she called me back. She's like, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, they called. What do I do?" I'm like, "First, apologize." Right? Then after she apologized, I'm like, "Okay, here's what I want you to do. First of all, I want you to go to, let's say, Kinko's or Staples and print your best work on the highest quality glossy paper. Even if it costs you $40, just have it ready. Then I want you to take all of your graphic portfolio and organize it." Back then, Flickr was very popular as a software, so that it's easily accessible. You don't have to go looking for files. I trained her on my 7 rules to a perfect interview, basically. And 2 days later, she came in. 15 minutes into the interview, literally the director put his pen down, looked at her, goes, "Listen, I've been running this program for 10 years. I have never been so impressed with a candidate as I am with you. I'm not even bothering with the second and third interview. You're my first hire for this internship." Right? So again, 2 days turnaround. Now, the reason I've spent 25,000 hours mastering everything to do with job finding. With the exception of a few Google interview questions, there isn't an interview question you can throw at me that I don't know. Now, I focused my program on kind of teaching people what they don't know or what they think they know, but no one's ever taught them correct. So, for example, prior to COVID, Indeed had 40 million users, and one job posting was getting between 350 and 5,000 applicants. When COVID hit, 60 to 65 million people lost their job, which means the competition just quadrupled, if not quintupled. Right? Now, most jobs in North America say, "Don't call us, we'll call you." Now, most companies, when they're hiring from a job board, look at the first 100 because they figure out of 100, we probably get at least a few good candidates that we can choose. So if you're 101, they're not looking at your resume. So as a small little trick, and again, this is kind of some of the nuggets I share in my course, call the company and say, "My internet just crashed. I've been having computer problems all day. Can you check that my application went through? Or my battery almost died. Can you check that my application went through?" When HR goes to check if the application went through, they've actually pulled your resume from the bottom to the top of the file. So now you have a better chance of being seen. Now you're on the phone with them. So you can say, "By the way, here's the top 2 or top 3 things that I've achieved. Here's the results I produced that I can produce even better for your company." So you're planting the seed of how good you are and why they should consider you for the role. And finally, what you want to do is say to HR, "When do you expect to start interviewing for this role?" If they say, "Well, probably in 2 weeks," say to them, "If I don't hear from you in 3 weeks, is it okay for me to call you to get your expertise on what can make my resume better?" So now you've also given them credit as an expert because they're in HR to critique your resume or give you feedback on your resume to make it better. But you've created that opportunity to call back so that if they haven't chosen you in the first round, they could choose you in the second round, for example. Right? So that's off the bat. Similarly, what people don't understand is that Indeed scores your resume in 3 ways. And when I say Indeed, I'm talking about the big job boards: Indeed, Career Builder, Glassdoor, Monster, some of the big ones kind of thing. So first thing is they check when was the last time you updated your resume. So if you posted your resume, let's say in October during COVID, and you haven't touched it, you're probably on page 7,000. No one sees your resume. Now, most of the big databases refresh their database daily between 11:45 p.m. and 2:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So a trick to make sure that you have better chances of getting noticed is that you open your resume, and anywhere in your resume, you press the space bar and press save. The moment that you press save because you made a modification to your resume, it is now a new resume. So the database is more likely to read it than the one that's on page 7,000, trying to kind of connect with the employers. Most people don't bother doing this, and this is why they get lost in what I call the abyss of job boards, kind of thing. Second thing is, most people have been taught that they need to populate their resume with action words like managed, directed, liaised, communicated. However, the databases don't search for those words, nor do they search for what I call the fluffy subjective words of hardworking, dedicated, committed, and team player. Because in 20 years of recruiting, I've met very few people as candidates that say, listen, I'm lazy, I'll show up late, none of my work will be any good, and I really, really hate people, please hire me. Not unless you're related to them or having an affair with them that you can get away with that. Now, you also have to understand, all these words like hardworking is very subjective. So your definition of hardworking and my definition of hardworking could be very, very different. Even
Well,
within
knowing
industries.
you, it must be similar, just saying.
Right, but here's the thing, and I use this example, for example. Someone who works in public accounting during tax season, it's mandatory to work 80 hours a week. So what's hardworking, 100? Whereas in someone that works as, let's say, a nurse, especially now during these crazy times, that does 4 hours of overtime because the other nurse was stuck in traffic or couldn't arrive on time. Does that mean that the nurse is less hardworking than the accountant? No, because there's a different level of stress and there's a different level of responsibility. So adding those words on a resume is useless. Now, the database actually score your resume on the technical words related to your profession, right? So if you're an accountant, they're scoring words like accountant, accounting, financial statements, general ledger, balance sheet, income statement, because those are accounting terms. They're not scoring your resume on manage, direct, liaise, communicate, and so forth. So it's kind of like we've been taught the wrong thing because, yes, you want to show that you did more, but if you don't give me the technical words, the database doesn't know how to score you. And this kind of leads into kind of writing a resume, right? There's 5 mistakes that majority of the population, and when I say the majority, I'd say probably 98% of the population makes. And I'll start with the fact that they make their resume very cookie cutter, very plain. That only works if you're applying for government or government-like jobs, right? Because they don't like personality in your resume. But if you remember the movie Legally Blonde,
Oh, wow.
when Elle Woods applies to Harvard and also to the internship, she sends a pink scented resume. And everybody just goes, it's pink and it's scented. But they remember it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something I teach people, that you need to have a tiny bit of personality on your resume, whether it's using a little bit of color, whether it's changing the bullets to match the industry that you're in, whether it's creating boxes with insert text box on Word, a lot of variety of adding personality. So these are what I consider the 5 cardinal sins of a resume. Number 1, you use Times New Roman, Arial, or Calibri as your font, because those are the default fonts on Microsoft Word. So if you're using those fonts, you look like everybody else. Remember I said between 1,500 and 10,000 applicants, so you want to look a tiny bit different. Number 2, you use the black dots, squares, arrows, or dashes as your bullet points. Again, boring, useless. Number 3, you have a section on your resume called skills or career history, where you say, I have 10 years of experience and I know how to do this and I know how to do this. Nobody cares because it's not relevant to it, and they can kind of quickly scan through your resume anyhow. Number 4, and this is a huge mistake that's affecting people today especially more than ever, is that they have a chronological or functional resume. So if somebody was let go from a professional job and is now working part-time in retail or part-time somewhere to pay the bills, and that's the first job that an employer sees, they automatically dismiss you, because today employers spend between 8 and a maximum of 30 seconds reading your resume, which means they look at the top third to the top half of your resume. If something catches their attention, they put you in the yes file, right? So you want to not highlight that you're working part-time in something that has nothing to do with your job. And that's what most people do, is they put all their jobs and they put the job that has no relevance first. So companies dismiss you. So the biggest mistake that most people make is that they don't quantify their results. They just say, I know how to do this, or I did this and I did this. I always use this example because most people laugh. If someone's applying to be a receptionist somewhere and they tell me that they know how to answer the phone, a potential employer should look at you in shock and go, really? A receptionist that knows how to answer the phone? We did not know that. Because unless you live in an igloo, a cave, or a Mennonite, chances are you know how to press the green button and go, hello, how can I help you? Now, if you worked or you studied to be a receptionist, for example, and you know how to answer 60 calls a day with 12 different lines, I can measure 60 calls a day with 12 different lines. I cannot measure, I know how to answer the phone. So most people, when they go, I know how to do sales. I've done B2B sales and B2B. What does that mean? You sold lemonade when you were 10 years old and you sold 3 cups? Congratulations, right? Like, that's not what's going to get you hired today. But if I say to you, okay, in sales, and this is a true story, let's say I worked for a private college that before I came in generated $530,000 for the year. In 1 month, I generated $860,000 for them. Do you think I can sell any? Right?
Absolutely.
Why? Because I've given you numbers. Now, even if the numbers don't make sense, you have a follow-up question like, how did you get so much sales? Because that seems quite a jump from 530 in a year to $860,000 in a month. Yeah. Because I knew my clientele and I knew what to offer them correctly, right? And I built those relationships. But again, this is where most people fail. Like, you know, if you're, let's say, any financial advisor in the background kind of thing, like, I need to know how much you've helped clients, what kind of rate of return you've gotten them, because that's how I know that you are good for me and you have the knowledge or background that I'm looking for, let's say, because a lot of people don't know anything. And it's the same thing for job finding. If you just kind of go, I know how to do this, great. Like, you know, graphic design. Have you met a single graphic designer that does not know how to use Adobe Photoshop?
Nope.
Right? So by default, it's the first thing you learn. I want to know how good you are in Adobe Photoshop. I want to know what you've created. I want to know how many projects you've done. I want to know what grades you've got. I want to know kind of if your designs are still being used today, because that sells you better than everybody else. And these are things that when I did my course, I was kind of going, I don't want to kind of say the same thing that everybody already knows, like don't smoke before an interview. Should be common sense, but you would be surprised how little common sense we have these days, right? So, like, don't call us, we'll call you. Call them. What do you have to lose? A few minutes of your time, but increase your chance by tenfold to actually get the job, right? So it's about being a little bit more creative. It's about taking action and being different than everybody else.
I love it. These are exceptionally good, you know, advice pieces, and I really hope that anybody and everybody who's listening to this can actually relate. Because in everything that we are doing, really, we are selling, and an interview process is nothing else but selling yourself, right? So, and that's exactly what you're teaching. Now, you happen to have actually a recruiting firm that we discussed already extensively, but you also happen to be a career coach, and as part of it, you have created a course, the Dream Job Mastery. So I'm assuming some of these things that you just given us as free nuggets you are teaching, but what else can people?
So in the job there, like, so for example, I teach you how to write a resume correctly. I've provided 15 different templates that you can use that are outside the box and kind of give you a little bit of personality to get noticed. I've provided 15 cover letters. I've provided my 7 rules to kind of a wow interview that guarantees results, you know. And the reason I came up with this is because, again, being frustrated with what's going on in the market. Like, my brother was finishing his 3rd year mechanical engineering degree, applied for an internship. By the time one of the companies responded to him, he already registered for his 4th year classes, and he decided that the position was more of a paper pusher job than an engineering job. So he asked me to cancel the interview. I decided to go in as my brother. The only thing I know about mechanical engineering is what I wrote for him on his resume. My first interview, there was 100 students from 4 major universities in Ontario. Queens, UFT, Waterloo, and Ryerson. Within 45 minutes, Human Resource called me back, said, we love you. We need to come back for a second interview. I was like, okay, let's see how far I can take this. My second interview was with the manager of the department that I potentially work with. Now, I spoke the truth about my brother's resume. So my brother was on a team that designed a wheelchair for third world nations that use a tank chain, so it can go on any terrain. Came second in Ontario for the best mechanical engineering project of the year, won $500 from RBC, told the manager I studied thermodynamics and quantum physics. To this day, I have no idea what those are. Didn't even leave the parking lot. Manager called me back, said, I adore you. I need to come back for a third and final interview. Out of 100 candidates, I made it to the final 3. I was the first one in at 8:30 in the morning. Manager walked over to me and goes, here's your offer letter. The job's yours. All you have to do is pass the mechanical engineering test. I looked at him. I looked at the test. I looked at him. I looked at the test. I'm like, I can't do this test. Manager looked at me and goes, I know you're nervous. Let me help you. He solved the first 2 questions for me.
Oh my God.
I looked at him and I said, listen, I am so sorry for wasting your time. I guess I'm a lot more comfortable with the design than I am with the calculation. I'm not the right candidate for this job. Thank you for the opportunity. Manager followed me to the car and begged me to take the job because I've interviewed that much better than every other mechanical engineer. Right? So I've created kind of 7 rules. This is how simple it is, how easy it is to work. I'm currently working with somebody who's currently in Israel. He's a logistics manager. I wrote his resume. I did his LinkedIn profile. I updated his LinkedIn profile at 6:30 a.m. By 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, he had 2 companies call him and say if he was available for a job while he's still in Israel, kind of thing. And when he told them he's still in Israel, I was like, oh no, we're not necessarily ready to sponsor, but I just proved to him how quickly you can get the job, right? So my course talks about the psychology of the interview, how to interview correctly. The questions you should ask at the end of the interview to impress your interviewer, to show them how good you are and why you're better than everybody else. I teach you how to optimize your LinkedIn profile, right? Because again, most people that write a LinkedIn profile is as awful as their resume. It's like, I work here. I've done this. Whoopsie-doo. Like, nobody cares because that doesn't tell me anything about how great you are and what you do, right? I teach you how to network. So I don't know if you noticed, but I'm wearing purple. Purple is my signature color. Everywhere I go, I wear purple. My business card's purple. My website's purple. Everything's purple. Why? Because when I go to a networking event, and let's say, Annie, I send you an email. I say, hey, Annie, I'm Joseph, the guy that wore the purple shirt. You might not remember my name, but you'll remember the purple shirt. I usually wear a fancy watch. It's my favorite watch. It's something that I can emotionally connect to. So even the way you brand yourself makes a big difference in networking. So for guys, the shirt, the tie, a fedora, if you have a pin that's specific or whatever. For women, there's a lot more choices on how you can brand yourself because you can do your hair a certain way, you can do earrings, you can do a scarf, you can do an outfit, you can do particular shoes, you can do, a pin. There's a lot more variety, but have something that every time you're seen, people associate that with you so that they remember you. There's that level. Second thing is one of the biggest mistakes that most people do when they network is to go, oh, you're an executive. I need a job. Can you give me a job? Well, you're laughing, but that's the majority of what people do. But here's the thing. Most people, I've gone to networking events where I will talk a little bit about job finding. And in the middle of my conversation, somebody goes, ooh, you sound kind of important. Can I have your card? And I'm like, sure. And then they send me an email, go, yeah, I heard about, I kind of met you at the networking event yesterday. Can I get a job? Who are you? What conversation did we have? Is there anything that makes me excited to work with you, kind of thing? And so many people do this without realizing this is useless, right? You're going to go to a networking event. First of all, make sure that you're different. Make sure that you brand yourself and have conversations about them, not about me looking for a job, right? Ask an executive, what made you so successful? What are your biggest achievements? Because when you have those conversations with people, those executives will remember you. They'll want to talk to you. They'll follow up with you because you gave them an opportunity to brag about how great they are, and everybody loves to do that. So I talk about that, and I talk about the strategies of where to, like, here's the kind of general ideas of where you can network, and then pick the ones that are industry specific to you that you can go to and use resources effectively, even online today. I talk about salary negotiations. I talk about the examples I gave in terms of beating the job boards, not only just beating them, but some companies will say, okay, everybody knows about Indeed. So if you've applied for Indeed, we're not even going to bother to look at your resume. But if you applied to, let's say, All-Star Jobs, which less people know about, we're going to look at your resume because you had to do some research about All-Star Jobs, right? So I've listed for you about 250 agencies in Canada and about 300 in the US that you can call. I teach you how to work with employment agencies because, again, understand employment agencies, since I own one, work on commission. It is in my interest to place you. But just like any other profession, there's good and bad in recruiting. You know, I might interview you might be a phenomenal candidate, and I give you to my coworker because he has a job, but he doesn't want to split the commission with me because it's his job. So he won't even look at your resume. I've worked for recruiting companies where I had great clients. Let's say I got 20, 30 orders a year from them. And then head office called me and said, it's no longer your client. It's now head office client because it's a good client. So all that relationship that I built, gone, right? I've had companies that say, we need somebody urgently, and then told me to delay it, and told me to delay it, and told me to delay it. And so I, as the recruiter, look like an idiot because I'm waiting for the client, but meanwhile, the candidates are going, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? And there's only so many times I can go, I'm sorry, they've delayed it again. I'm sorry, no response yet. So there's a lot of factors behind the scene that individuals don't know. But I also teach people when, like, to optimize. So part of my course is the 5 ways to optimize your job search. So 10% of your time should be on the job boards like Indeed and Glassdoor there, because there's the biggest amount of competition there. 25% of your time should be with employment agencies because they already have ins with companies that you might want to work for. They already have that relationship with them, right? 25% of your job search should be on LinkedIn. And I separate LinkedIn from the job boards on purpose because LinkedIn has what's called the in-mail function where you can actually email people in the company and build that relationship. Because if you build rapport with somebody in the company, most companies pay their employees to refer someone who's good, especially if they pass probation. So if that employee likes you and they recommend you to HR, their HR is going to look at your resume much faster than if you apply through the job boards. So 25% should be on LinkedIn, but also like other social media like Facebook, Instagram, because if you participate in the conversations that are on Facebook, that the Facebook group, the company will look you up on LinkedIn. They will research you, and then they'll reach out to you if they think that your input's interesting and relevant, for example. Then 25% should be networking. Even now during COVID, more than ever, there is a gazillion live event every single day. You can probably have like 7 of them every day. Find the ones that are right for you, right? And last but not least, 15% of your time, this is the hardest, but it's the most rewarding, is create a position just for you that does not exist. And this goes with going the extra mile. Reaching out to an employer, having that conversation, not about a job, but about resources, ideas. So an example of this, and this was told by both a friend and a mentor, his name is Barry Spilchuk. He wrote A Cup of Chicken Soup for the Soul. So the mini chicken soup that fits into your pocket. He's written 14 books and has sold over 640,000 books worldwide. And he shared with me a story that he's originally from North Bay, and there was a security guard there in the mall that would come into work 15 minutes early every day, would always be smiling, would always be energetic. If you walked around the mall and saw garbage, you would go and pick it up. If customers had a lot of shopping bags, he would help them carry the shopping bags to their car. When the vendors came in with new merchandise, he would help them carry the merchandise into the store. Now, the owners who were on the 4th floor looking down saw this every single day. And they called him into the office and say, why do you do this? Why are you so happy? Why do you pick up garbage? He goes, listen, I don't want garbage in my home. I don't want it in my work. I treat my work like it's my home. So I'm going to be here. I might as well enjoy. I might as well be happy as opposed to being miserable. right? And I believe like it makes the shopping experience better for me having so much on our data. The owners were so impressed that they paid for his entire education, including his MBA, to come back and manage the entire mall for them, right? And this is where it's a lot about being proactive. I have a friend also graduated mechanical engineering, couldn't find a job because he was in that catch-22 where you need 5 years of experience for an entry-level job in mechanical engineering, but he just graduated university, so he didn't have any experience, kind of thing. And after sending out resumes, nobody responded. He decided, okay, I'm tired of this. He printed, I don't know, 20 copies of his resume. He chose a few companies that he potentially wants to work for. And he went to the first company and said, I'd like to speak to the director. Receptionist looked at him and said, do you have an appointment? He said, no. Receptionist said, he's busy. He said, I'll wait. And he waited there until about 2:15 in the afternoon. At 2:15 in the afternoon, the director came out and said, how can I help you? And my friend came and said, here's my resume. I've already applied online. I wanted to come in and personally introduce you because just in case you're going to be hiring, here's kind of the projects I worked on in my degree. Here's what I know. I would love an opportunity to talk to you about getting to it. The director was so impressed that he stayed there the whole day just to speak to him for a few minutes that he hired him right on the spot. No interview, no, just literally looked at his resume, heard his kind of example, said, you're hired. And we don't do this. We've lost the personal touch of, interacting. And I appreciate COVID is making it a little bit harder to interact and get together or go in person. But there's ways of being proactive. So I teach you how to be proactive. I give you examples. I teach you examples of how to think outside the box, like, buying a box of donuts, putting your resume inside, and sending it to the department that you want to work in a company. You'd be surprised how quickly you can get hired when you send some food to a department, right?
That's
So the
a
course
sweet
is
notice.
designed like almost like I've done the homework for you. I've given you the resumes, I've given you the interview, I've given you the salary, I've given you the LinkedIn, I've given you the networking. All you have to do is literally do something. And the way that I created my course is I don't want to be one of those like, oh, it's $97 and then you pay me $5,000, then you pay me $10,000, and you really, really learn it. It's $97 US, no upsell. It's everything you need. It's basically 25,000 of hours of experience that I put into this to help everybody understand. Here's why you're not getting hired. Here's why you're making mistakes. Here's why you're so frustrated, right? And it doesn't matter whether you're a new immigrant to the country or you have 30 years of experience or 50 years of experience, because I've helped people that, in their like 50s, 60s, 70s that, haven't worked for a few years, came back. It doesn't matter because it's all about how you put things and how you explain them. So if you've had a gap in your career because you were taking care of family members, most people are afraid to say that. But there's nothing wrong with having integrity and saying, you know what, like my parent was sick, I was taking care of them. That's why I haven't worked for a couple of years. Most companies will appreciate that level of dedication and commitment. Most people don't understand that. And so they come in and they go, hi, I'm really hardworking, I'm dedicated and committed. I can do this and I can do that. Wonderful. Congratulations that you can do it. But so can everybody else that's in this realm or profession. I haven't met one engineer that does not know how to do work on serial or parallel boards, especially for electromechanical, right?
Absolutely.
So this is where I focus the program into making it so simple that there's a PowerPoint, there's video, there's audio, there's PDFs to kind of give you the resources where you don't need to think. You don't need to go, okay, so Joe said I should network. I don't know where to network. I've listed about 40 different places that you can network, and then I've given you a few sentences on where you can find additional networking that are specific to your industry, right? Because if you're in finance, for example, going to, let's say, a graphic designer's networking event, probably not the best connection unless you're looking for new clients, and that's a different conversation. But in terms of, meeting like-minded or getting hired, you're not going to get hired by graphic designers as a financial person.
Actually, you brought up something really good because, if someone is watching this and they are entrepreneurs or business owners and they're like, I don't want a job per se. I have my business, but how do I take it to the next level? I think that what you are giving these nuggets, they can even help them to revamp their business and find actually new avenues to really, grow them. So I
Well,
really see tremendous value in everything that you're
on the
saying.
business side, and this is where I'm going to just touch on that, Annie, and thank you for bringing that up. I call myself a corporate culturist, not just a recruiter. Now, the reason I call myself a corporate culturist is because I serve companies and entrepreneurs in 5 different ways that most people don't. Number one, when and if you're ready to hire people, I can help you hire the right people because I put every single candidate through multiple personality tests beyond knowing what to ask for. If you already have employees and you need to hire more, or you have employees and you have a high level of turnover, I've partnered up with the 5 largest personality assessment, value assessments in basically North America that has AI built in, that I can tell you exactly where there's problems in your company and why, because I can do anonymous services and they're already set up. I help organizations understand what corporate culture is. It's not just a nice buzzword, because I'll use an example. So my uncle was the president of the company that did the Canada Arm, the equivalent of NASA for Canada. And we're having dinner one day, and he said to me, my engineers and my developers get so focused. We get so focused on programming that they forget to eat. So I said to him, okay, you know what? I want you to do this little experiment for the next 2 months. I want you to send somebody from your staff to Costco, spend $200 to $300 a week to buy granola bars, fruits, cookies, gummy bears, and just leave them in the staff room or the lunchroom. After 1 month, his productivity increased by 20%. So just by spending $200 a week on his staff without giving everybody big raises and big bonuses, for example. So I help create corporate culture. I help companies understand that socially responsible is not just a buzzword as well. If you're telling me, well, our company builds houses for Habitat for Humanity, but you're forcing your staff to do it on Saturday, Sunday, that's not socially responsible. Pay them Thursday, Friday, and then if they're enjoying the experience, let them choose to come back Saturday, Sunday. And last but not least, I do outplacement. So if things like COVID hit and you unfortunately need to downsize, I help the people that have been downsized get rehired. So I help businesses succeed where, as an entrepreneur, you need to hire the right people and keep them so that your business grows, because having one position open costs a business a minimum of $100,000 a month for one position open.
I love it, Joe. You know what? You provided so much value today. I really
Thank you.
appreciate you. Why don't you tell us, what's your best availability in terms of what's the website, phone number, anything that people can reach you?
So it's Dream Job Mastery is the course for $97. If somebody doesn't know how to get a hold of the course, they can find me there's a Facebook group called Land Your Dream Job. Nice and easy, nice and simple. I've posted the course there too. I'm going to be hosting, for people that are on the Facebook group, live webinars to give them extra value, where I'm going to be coaching people without having them pay me, just basically being part of the group. You can find me on LinkedIn, Joseph Stetter. I'm pretty easily found. I don't use my Twitter that often. I do have an Instagram account. But again, Facebook, Land Your Dream Job, Dream Job Mastery. Hopefully you can add the code that I've given there for the course there in your posting. And that's it. Nice and easy.
Perfect, Joe. This was awesome. Really appreciate it. And thank you for bringing so much value to the world.
Thank you, Annie, for the opportunity. And I had a blast.
Have a wonderful day.
You too.